The Conservative Party now faces a forecast so bleak it borders on historical annihilation. Internal modelling circulating through CCHQ suggests the party could return as few as 14 seats in Parliament. That would be a fall not merely from government but from relevance itself. It would shrink a once dominant party, a party that won an 80-seat majority only 5 years ago, into a parliamentary curiosity smaller than the SDP Liberal Alliance at its nadir, and perilously close to being overtaken by several unimportant regional parties. What has unsettled Conservative insiders is not simply the number, it's the direction of travel. The stack data strategy model, using MRP techniques with substantial sampling, places the Conservatives on 17% of the vote. Yet it converts that figure into a vanishingly thin footprint across the country because of the distribution of that support. It is shallow, broad, fatigued, and surplus in the wrong places. This is the geometry of collapse. It's not a geometry of change, of collapse. Reform UK, by contrast, sits on 30% in this model, translating into a speculative majority of around 46 seats. These headline numbers are startling, but the psychological impact is more important. The perception that Nigel Farage is now the gravitational centre of opposition on the right. His reported jibe, referring to Kemi Badenoch as Santa Claus because she gifts him a political present every day she remains leader, captures the sense of increasing inevitability surrounding reform's rise. When you think of it, it's only 2 years since Nigel Farage was dithering about whether to actually stand for reform at all in Parliament. The Conservative Party's predicament is not exclusively the leader's fault, though Badenoch's limitations are painfully apparent and enormous. Critics inside her own headquarters describe an operation that has lost its bearings, a strategy that has not stabilised the numbers, and a leader who has not yet found a tone that cuts through. But to blame Badenoch alone is a convenient illusion. The public has already turned before she arrived. Trust had evaporated across the political spectrum. Economic mismanagement under Truss, COVID rule breaking under Johnson, technocratic drift under Sunak, and when a party breaks its bond with the electorate, the individual at the helm becomes almost incidental. But, you have to recognise Kemi Badenoch is bad beyond belief. She is so unbelievably useless in terms of intellectual stamina, in terms of performance during PMQs when she is most visible. One Conservative insider quoted in the leak calls the present situation an extinction event. That is not melodramatic, it's a sober recognition that British politics is littered with once powerful parties that slid into irrelevance because they misread the times. The Liberals in the 1920s, the Scottish Conservatives after 1997, UKIP after 2017. Extinction doesn't require losing every seat. It requires losing cultural purchase, intellectual confidence, and the sense of being an alternative government. Crucially, however, a Conservative collapse does not imply an automatic transfer of votes to Reform UK. The assumption that disaffected Tories will simply slide over to Farage is analytically lazy. At the last election, millions of former Conservatives simply stayed at home. They didn't trust Labour, they didn't admire reform, they simply withdrew from the political marketplace. Many of those voters are still in retreat. In constituencies where I have spoken to residents, the mood is one of fatigue rather than fury. They are not choosing a new champion, they are choosing silence. Like me, many Conservatives feel that they are politically partyless. That presents both a threat and an opportunity for reform. It means their ceiling is lower than the polls imply because the right-of-centre electorate is fractured into 3 blocks. Those sticking with the Conservatives out of instinct, those flirting with reform out of anger, those washing their hands of the lot of them. If Badenoch's party implodes completely, many will not vote reform out of gratitude or ideological affinity. They will simply not vote at all. There are some who might be drawn to the Lib Dems, particularly if the Lib Dems have a period of time in opposition to show that they are competent. They would get on better without Ed Davey, the person who has been so tarred by the Horizon scandal. Another point the modelling highlights is Labour's unexpected fragility. In this projection, Labour sits on 24% and barely 160 seats, a catastrophic fall from its 2024 landslide. That is not because public affection has transferred to the Conservatives. It is because the fragmentation of the electorate is universal. Voters are volatile, restless and unforgiving. The Conservative decline is spectacular, but it sits within a wider pattern of political dissolution. Where does this leave the Conservatives? Well, two grim realities. First, they can no longer assume they are the natural party of opposition. That mantle is, for now, drifting emotionally towards reform, although in practical terms, should some Conservative MPs jump ship to reform, the natural successor will be the Lib Dems, who will take the place of Kemi Badenoch on the opposition benches. The second, they can no longer assume, the Conservatives can no longer assume that they will survive. Parties can die in British politics. The Conservative Party's age doesn't protect it, its history doesn't protect it, its brand certainly doesn't protect it. If Kemi Badenoch cannot turn the numbers, and I think the chances of her turning the numbers are as slim as winter in July, the question becomes existential. Do the Conservatives persist as a diminished, structurally weakened minor party, or do they fracture, merge or fade? And if they fade, does reform become the vessel for the right, or does the right remain splintered and self-defeating for a decade? At present, the evidence points towards a political winter so cold that even the most seasoned Tory veterans cannot be confident of spring at all. The great irony is that the future of British conservatism may now rest not on whether the Conservatives can win seats, but on whether their voters decide to show up at all, and many quite understandably may prefer to stay at home.